Other studies that we've seen come out, this is so interesting, and this will be our local interest tie-in, have to do with the testing for COVID-19. You remember we talked a little bit last week. We were able to get into the fact that there were, they say there are 250,000 deaths from coronavirus this year. And a study that we talked about last week, which ended up getting depublished because it was not politically correct, not that it was inaccurate, it wasn't retracted by the study author, but it was depublished by the journal that had published it because it was not politically correct. I mean, I thought we were talking about science, but apparently we're talking about politics, right? And that's what so much of this has come down to is politics. But that study showed that the 250,000 alleged deaths from coronavirus actually no longer existed in other categories like heart disease and other cancer, other categories. And so it's caused some people to say, wait a minute, are these deaths from coronavirus or are they deaths with coronavirus? And that's a pretty important distinction, isn't it? Another thing you might want to look at is the testing sensitivity of the tests that we're using in this country, the PCR test. And there are a lot of studies coming out about that and a lot of information coming out about the fact that those tests are too sensitive. So they are detecting coronavirus alleged infections in cases where there actually aren't active infections. And anybody that you know that's gotten a false positive and then gone back later for a test and gotten a negative very soon thereafter, like a couple of days thereafter, may fall into this category of somebody who's gotten an oversensitive test and gotten the false positive. And so what basically has come out is they've got what they call the cycle threshold turned up way too high on these PCR tests. And they've got it up around, in some cases, around 40 cycles when really it should be down under 20 cycles. Now, what the PCR test does is it picks up on little fragments of RNA and DNA of the virus itself, supposedly. But when they turn it up so sensitive, it's not actually picking up an active infection. It could be picking up little viral particles that you picked up around as you moved around through the world, through the environment, but didn't actually get you sick, because it's possible to ingest virus particles and not actually develop an active infection. A lot of people don't understand that you have to ingest a certain amount of viral particles and your immune system has to react in a certain way for you to then get the infection. But the important thing to remember is that the higher number of cycles, the lower the amount of viral load in the sample that's required to trigger a positive result. The lower the number of cycles, the more prevalent the virus has to be in the sample to trigger a positive result. And this has resulted in something here in Florida. Florida is the first state, this just happened on December 3rd, to start to require all laboratories doing coronavirus testing to report the cycle threshold level of every single test they perform. So Governor Ron DeSantis, again, kind of leading the charge on actually looking at the science of this and finding out what are we really dealing with here. Not the false positives, not the hysteria, but what are we really dealing with in terms of active infections. We'll be right back. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.